Are you ready to
Good
go?
morning. I know this is an unusual phenomenon for you, but it is a joy to be with you in this electronic format today while my family and I are away on vacation. And I appreciate your willingness to try new things. So let's begin with a word of prayer. Gracious and mighty God, we come before you yet again, having read from your word and seeking your blessing as we strive to interpret your word. Be with us, guide us, help us, and protect us, O Lord, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together will be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So here we are with David, encountering, as you have heard in the 28th Psalm, a prayer of both thanksgiving and for help. I think it's fair to say we've all encountered moments in our lives when we really felt the need for God's help. But like David at the beginning of this psalm, find ourselves wondering if God is truly there. David's words, "To you, O Lord, I call, my rock. Do not refuse to hear me. For if you are silent to me, I shall be like those who go down to the pit. Hear my voice of supplication as I cry to you for help, as I lift up my hands toward your most holy sanctuary." David is asking for that sense of assurance of knowing that God is there. I know I've had many times in my life where I needed to know the presence of God. I wonder how God shows up for you. For me, when I know and feel the presence of God, I'm kind of like John Wesley in that I find a strange warming in the center of my chest that assures me of God's presence. Perhaps you're one of those people for whom God lives in your feet, and when God is present, you feel the need to move. Perhaps God lives for you in your stomach, and when all is at rest, you know you are at peace. But when things are not right, you lack that presence of God. For some, the presence of God is in their minds. They hear the voice of God. They feel God's presence in their thoughts, in their actions. Everyone is a little different. That's part of the beauty and mystery of God, is we never know how God shows up for the other person. Some folks see the presence of God in the presence of others. And that's an opportunity as church to be that presence of God for those others. But I want to spend some time, before we go too far down that road, on the middle section of this psalm. Do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who are workers of evil, who speak peace with their neighbors while mischief is in their hearts. Repay them according to their work and according to the evil of their deeds. Repay them according to the work of their hands. Render them their due reward, because they do not regard the works of the Lord or the work of his hands. He will break them down and build them up no more. That's a fascinating little section in this psalm, and part of the reason I find it so fascinating is I read the words and wonder, is that a prayer? Or is David trying to reassure himself of what all is really going to go on with God? Notice in verse 5, if you have your Bibles open, because they do not regard the works of the Lord or the work of his hands, He will break them down no more and build them up no isn't praying to God as much as David is speaking of God. And I think this is noteworthy as we spend the summer in the Psalms to remember that the Psalms were the core of the singing ministry of the early church. These are where the songs come from. These are where the worship melodies take place. And so this is, like so many of our own songs, a reminder that God will not bless those who are evil, but will bless those who are faithful. David then continues, "Blessed be the Lord, for he has heard the sound of my pleadings. The Lord is my strength and my shield. In him my heart trusts. So I am helped, and my heart exults. And with my song I give thanks to him." Now I realize there's a whole lot of male pronouns in there, and we can have our discussions, and I will probably side with most of you, that male pronouns for God are not necessary, and certainly for some folks are not necessarily helpful at all. But let's not get distracted by that. Because once again, David is not praying to God here as much as David is recounting the blessings of God that come from the worship of God. We get blessed because we worship. I'm not sure I agree with that theology. I find my image of God to be more consistent with one who walks with us at all times, who seeks to bless us in all moments, and worship is our response. To play with this notion that there's cause and effect of worship and blessing, I find more than a little dangerous. I hope you do too. Instead, I want to focus on the notion that God is present. At the end of the psalm, David writes, "The Lord is the strength of his people. He is saving refuge of his anointed. O save your people and bless your heritage. Be their shepherd and carry them forever." You see, of all the words in this psalm, in this 28th version of the songs of the early church, those are the ones that speak to my heart and my soul. The ones that remind us that God is our shepherd and will carry us forever. When we take that as the starting point of the psalm and work our way backward, everything changes. If we note that David is saying, "The Lord is the strength of his people and the saving refuge of his anointed," and counts on God to be our shepherd and carry us forever, then our understanding of the repayment of the evil works is more a function of David understanding that God is carrying us, and those who are not being carried by God need a little pickup, a little lifting up by the Almighty God, a little carrying of their own. And in some ways, perhaps that's even a prayer, a blessing for those enemies. Likewise, the beginning of the psalm, "Do not refuse to hear me. If you are silent to me, I shall be like those that go down to the pit." Sometimes we just need to know God is there. I was watching a young family enter a shopping area the other day, and I noticed that they are all walking his father. He knew his father was right there. He could hear his voice. They were moving together and working with a guided purpose. But it's like he needed that assurance, that touch, to know that Dad was present and protecting him and caring for him and willing to make sure all was well in the midst of this strangeness and newness. I think Psalm 28 speaks to that same need in our own hearts, that need for assurance that God is there. I don't know how God expresses God's presence to you. When I feel the presence of God most strongly, I have a warming and tingling sensation around my heart. I know others that have experienced the presence of God when all is well in their stomach, but when things are upset or difficult, they are longing for it, reaching for that touch, that presence of God. Others experience the presence of God in their feet, a need to get up and do something. Some experience the presence of God, hearing God's presence in their mind. And some folks experience the presence of God through the presence of others. I know the Lord is your shepherd. I know that God, through Jesus Christ, walks with you. And I wonder, who in your life needs to experience that presence of God that comes through another, that comes through you? I know it's ironic that I'm talking to you about presence ministry on a video screen. When we are present with others and God is with us, we are assured by Jesus of God's presence. For he told us, whenever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there with them. David in this psalm is calling out for the assurance of the presence of God. Someone is calling out. I pray that this week you will find the opportunity to be that person.